Hello, welcome to Establish, a youth ministry podcast hosted by AC UK. My name's Jake.
And my name is Emmy, and today this is our second episode where we are exploring how to connect the youth ministry vision to the local church, and we really hope you enjoy it. Welcome to episode 2 of Establish. We are joined by Sean Hornsby, and he is one of the senior leaders within Youth for Christ, and he also is on the team that bring Limitless Festival. And we are going to be exploring how we can connect the youth vision within our local church's vision as well, because so often we really feel like it could be disconnected, and we want to see the youth and the local church really just come together. So Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
What a pleasure. It's a joy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Sean, I've got a question for you. I'd love just to fire you straight from the outset. We've used this turn of phrase in the podcast quite a lot, being rooted and established. And one of the terminology you could argue is being rooted in a local church and in a local community. And sometimes within setting up youth ministry, having that conversation with leaders and navigating it together can be a bit of a challenge. How do you keep the main thing? How do you keep your youth ministry within the vision and the mission of the local church?
Yeah, good question. And so for context, for those that may not know me, I was a youth and young adult pastor for 10 years in a local church in Devon, and had the great joy of leading a youth team and young people within the local area. It's a really, really big point. And I would go as far to say that the success and enjoyment of youth ministry is hugely influenced by the relationship between the youth pastor and the senior leader. And I don't think that can really be, overemphasized enough. Of course, the church often has this kind of vision and strategy that they feel God's given them for their local area, which is wonderful. And then the youth ministry come along, and often the youth ministry have got their own kind of vision and perspective of how that's going to work. And if I could stress anything, it would be to work really, really hard on the relationship, the senior pastor. Immerse yourself into the wider vision of the church. Ultimately, your youth ministry is involved, invested, connected into that wider church's vision, right? So there should be similarities, I think, crossover. There should be an integration between those two things in terms of what you want to achieve within the youth ministry and how that connects into the wider church. But it is really influenced, in my opinion, my experience. The relationship with the senior pastor really makes a massive difference on even just your enjoyment of things, because you don't want to feel like you're kind of butting heads and feel like you're competing and getting frustrated. It's one of the worst situations to be in. So work on that relationship, crucial.
Yeah, so good. It's really helpful.
Really good. And it's a really good, almost your first step, isn't it? At that stage of just being so intentional about those relationships within the team, I guess.
I think it's hard because when God speaks to you or gives you a burden for setting up youth ministry, or even just a burden for anything, you kind of want to just go for it straight away. And I think the importance of sitting under leadership and being accountable within the space that you find yourself, it's not an easy thing to hold those two things in tension. But I do think that God blesses it when you do have that conversation and when you're working together. And I think sometimes it can be discouraging. We've heard stories of people that have tried to set things up and it hasn't quite worked out. But I guess that's one thing is if you're kind of on board with the church, you want the church to be on board with your initiative. You want them to be kind of supporting you, championing you. How do you communicate to the church, Sean, about the maybe new incentives or the ideas that you want to start or launch? How do you get people on board? How do you get the church on board? How do you communicate to them effectively about these things?
Yeah, and again, every style is going to be different with this. I guess self-discovery in your own communication style is really important because we're all uniquely wired. We've all got a variety of diverse gifts in terms of how we communicate. I always think, in my conversations with people when it comes to this stuff, whether it be communication training with anyone, one of the most important principles that I would love to see people understand the power of is the power of story. The power of, really transmitting across what God is doing in the lives of young people that you are working with, why they should give to that, why they should be drawn towards that, why they should invest prayer into that. The power of story is so crucial because people find themselves in it when you're sharing it. So I think for me, in the context that I was in, I always looked for opportunities to share stories of testimonies of what I'm seeing God do in young people's lives within the ministry. Also, what God's doing across the nation is really important. The big picture of what God is doing, and we're seeing God do amazing things right now across the nation in the UK. This openness to spirituality. So I think sharing those things, sharing the big picture, sharing the local picture, is really, really helpful in communicating effectively, bringing people in. The other thing to just say, I think one of the things that's slightly unspoken in youth ministry is that there's this weird tension of you're also kind of helping parents and pastoring parents to a degree. And I know we're focused on reaching young people, but that dynamic is there, right? We have parents picking them up, dropping them off. The relationship between parents, if there is anyone that is invested, anyone that is super prioritizing the youth ministry, it's parents of teenagers, parents of young people. So journeying with them, being transparent with them, encouraging them, praying for them is equally as important as all that we are doing for young people as well. So that kind of journey is a strange one because you don't speak about it. I think if you go to, get training, it's all about the young people. Often we don't quite consider the family nucleus that's going on as well and how that plays out. So I think that's really important. I think
definitely. I in my experience, I think it's sometimes when we specifically are talking about either church leadership or parents, they are both very interesting relationships to navigate. And sometimes you feel like you can be doing it really well, and then all of a sudden you almost feel like you're on a back burner from it. And I think that's a really important thing to discuss, actually, and let's be upfront about it. Sometimes it's really not easy. It's really not easy. And I was talking with my line manager the other day actually about the importance of really needing to get parents on board, of wanting to get them on board with vision, but also why is this important? And that's the same conversation that you want to be having with your church as well. You wanting to bring them on board of saying, this is why we need to be investing in this generation. And I guess it's a more practical step, Sean, that I don't know if you can speak into, but how do you do that? How do you effectively take the step of saying, join me with this, get on board this vision that I have? And how do we make that a church vision? How do we all take responsibility for what it is that we want to be able to provide young people?
Yeah, and this goes back to kind of the first thing we spoke about that you asked me, Jake. It is again so crucial, the relationship the pastors involved in this journey. The voice of the senior leader in the church is so important for direction of travel. It's so important for creating an urgency and a desire to want to get involved. So that relationship there is crucial to that, because if you feel like a lone wolf constantly banging the drum, which often is the case in many youth pastors' experience or youth leaders' experience, there has to be a journey there with team and involvement with that. I think, there was a moment within my local youth ministry journey where I started to realize that the most effective space of discipleship is rooted within family. And that's not just blood family, biological family, but it's the role of grandparents, spiritual grandparents, spiritual parents, spiritual brothers and sisters who are a little bit older. And I think sometimes I felt this pressure as a youth pastor. Let me just be vulnerable and honest with this, right? So I felt this pressure at times where I had parents who had maybe a young person, they really wanted to see them grow in their faith and they were struggling to do so. And then I felt this overwhelming pressure of, this is my fault, I'm doing something wrong here. And it's broadening the awareness of actually, you only have so much contact time with these young people. These parents are seeing them much more than you. So you have to take the church on this journey of discipleship isn't the youth pastor's responsibility. It's not the youth team's responsibility. It's the whole wide range thing. It's bringing the church on a journey of we're a family. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. And exactly what you've just said, Sean, I feel like that comes back to the accountability thing. Because when you're having those more difficult conversations with parents, actually being rooted and established in sitting under accountability within your church leadership and within the vision of the local church, you can actually have really honest conversations and say, actually, maybe this is not just a me conversation, but this is a church conversation, because I'm comfortable under the accountability of my leaders. I'm sitting under their accountability. I believe in their vision. And so sometimes when you have those trickier conversations with parents, it becomes like a covering for you, if you like, to kind of sit under, which is like you said, it's part of being family. And sometimes we can view it negatively. We don't like sitting under authority. We don't like sitting under leadership. But like, I loved what you said, Sean. Like literally saying the success can often be measured in the relationship between the youth pastor and the senior pastor. I guess to push you a little bit further, Sean, into that kind of like practical, like thinking about practical things to consider in establishing youth ministry. Maybe there's some people listening to this podcast, I don't know wherever they find themselves, but they might be listening to this and they're going, the relationship with my senior pastor is not where I want it to be. And that could be for whatever reason. Maybe they have different values, or they're on different wavelengths when it comes to doing youth ministry in different ways, or for whatever reason, maybe they just don't naturally click together. Have you got any practical ways to help support them in building that relationship and trying to navigate setting up effective youth ministry that can be found? You know, you said part of the relationship sometimes is measured on success, but if people are sitting in a position where they don't feel the relationship is where they want it to be, what practical things can they do about that?
Yeah, this will obviously be so dependent on the context of the local church. It'll be dependent on, you know, busyness and all those kind of things. Every church in their context is so different, so that has to be, you know, balanced in what I'm kind of going to propose. I have a really obvious, simple solution that I genuinely think solves a lot of tensions, and it is this wonderful word called food.
I like that.
Genuinely, like, if there was one thing that I could say, it's just go and eat together, go and have some food, and get to know each other on a relational level that's away from, you know, away from success, however that's defined, or away from like measurements of growth, and just getting to know each other on like a personal level, like what are your interests, what's your family like, what are you passionate about, what's your hobbies. Learning that is so crucial, because it takes away some of that, like, you know, the grind that can happen when you're seeing things differently and you're viewing things differently. Like, let's just face it, normally, like, senior leaders are much older than maybe youth leaders, and there are just generational differences. Like, that's just there, and it's obvious, and that's happened before. And how you navigate those generational differences, how you understand how they see it, how they view things, is so important. It's so important. It can't be understated. So having food, getting to know each other on a relational level will really help determine some of those things. So I know it's really simplistic, and I do apologize for how simplistic it is, but genuinely start having food together. Like, try get around each other's homes, do life together. It does make a massive difference.
I love it. I think I love the practical nature of that answer. I can just imagine youth workers listening to this right now going, where could I go for food? Or could it be Chinese or India? Like,
I know,
thinking about what meals.
My head went, we've got a local, like, is it Conto Lounge?
Oh,
just
yeah.
being specific to the South Coast,
Yes.
is this place where they just do everything. And I'm like, that's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going.
I mean, I remember going for a late night McDonald's with you, Sean, at we were at a conference together and we went for a very late McDonald's, but we had some great conversation. And maybe McDonald's might be the space that these youth leaders can find themselves.
Maybe.
It's cheap and cheerful, right? I'm just thinking about a youth leader's budget. That's what I'm thinking about.
That's great. And I think I was thinking, when really trying to establish youth ministry, you're so aware that you want to have this vision for where you want to take them. You're dreaming and it's exciting. How aware do you think youth leaders should be of the overall church's vision? And how do you think they should be aligned with each other? Do you think they should have crossovers? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I do think there should be an alignment of somewhat, in some sense. I think that it really, really helps when there's a mutuality between the direction. Now, having said that, there also has to be a real clarity of understanding that they might be outplayed differently. So heart is the same, alignment is the same, vision is similar, but the outworking of them, the packaging of them, how they're delivered, that's where it may differ. And I think that is the same in a variety of different spaces within church ministry, and that's actually okay. But processing that with the senior leader and processing that again in team is really important. I think, like, if you are immersed in a church's vision, so whatever you hold within a church responsibility, whatever position you take, whatever your area is, children's pastor, associate pastor, youth pastor, whatever it is, if you are not immersed and infused by the vision, you're naturally going to start finding frustrations on the road. So there has to be something of your heart that is grabbed by it. There has to be something of, I'm in this, like this is actually, I believe in this. Because if there's something there where you think, actually, I don't think this is a priority, I don't think this is what we should be doing, then that's when often, confrontation and difficulties can arise, because the danger is what you'll do is you'll run with your own thing. And then in running with your own thing, you are creating this space that is just isolated. And that's when it becomes, even more difficult. Because like you say, what we were saying earlier, that accountability is not there, that relationship's not there. And it is crucial, like, humility and submission to another person's voice in anybody's life, no matter how high you are within a position or whatever, it is so important. We've got to have enough humility to go, I'm not Jesus, I need help, I need someone speaking into my life, directing me, giving me kind of, a different perspective. So I think that there should be something in you that's grabbed by it.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's so helpful, Sean, and you so good. I think just balancing out the kind of, the godly frustration that you want to get something started, alongside with the mindset that you need to kind of like align yourself to vision and sit under accountability and leadership, and finding traction in the two. There is a tension there, but that can exist. But equally, knowing that if you can, like you said, have that relational success, it will allow your youth ministry and future ministries to flourish. You talked about the power of story, Sean. And it would be really encouraging for us and to our listeners as well, just to maybe hear a story from you where you've been encouraged by youth ministry. It could be, I know that you connected with lots of centres around the country and youth initiatives, and with the Elim movement and stuff. It would be great to hear a story where you've just been encouraged with a local youth ministry, maybe kind of just doing something significant in their context.
Yeah. There are numerous I can think of over the years where I've been really inspired, encouraged. I'm trying to think which one will be best. I'll use one just on this kind of topic of conversation to do with like the relationship between senior leaders, youth leaders that we're kind of looking into. This is just one that was really encouraging me, because I do think this is a little bit abnormal. So people hearing this, you might be like, oh, this doesn't happen in my context. And I think that is more normal than it is, if I'm honest. But I was encouraged by, I was just speaking at a youth weekend, and I was doing sessions each day across the weekend, literally just gone. And across the weekend, there was around, 80, 90 young people at this youth weekend thing. And, typical kind of loads of activities in the day, morning and evening, different like youth sessions, talks and stuff. Throughout the weekends, it's a Friday night, Saturday to Sunday midday, visits in terms of the youth team, the youth pastor there, the senior leader visited, the associate pastor visited, the operations pastor visited, the kids pastor visited, and one of the elders visited. Like all five, and they didn't come together. They all came separately at different moments. They came. The senior pastor was in the kitchen, grating cheese. the associate pastor was just mingling and supporting team, and they all came. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like, oh, we all need to do this. There was just something of it that really encouraged me, because I, done loads of youth weekends away and festivals and stuff, and perhaps not had that support or that encouragement that can often happen because, and that's because of busyness and there's loads of things going on in church. But I was just really encouraged by it. I just thought it's so cool to see again that team effort of we're involved in this, we're invested in this, we do this together. The senior pastor is so concerned about how the young people are growing in this weekend away. So that would be one. I was really inspired by some youth leaders in an area that's down in the southwest. They've been doing youth ministry for around 30 years. They are, in their 50s, still serving in their church. And the church that I was part of, that was about an hour away, we reaped the reward from their hard work, because we just started getting these young leaders appearing out of nowhere, really skilled, really capable, God's gift, on their lives. And I was asking the question, like, where are these guys coming from? And they came from this local church of these faithful, who would call themselves parents, spiritual parents, just invested in youth ministry. And I can remember connecting with them and just going, you guys are the heroes of this nation in my mind. Like, you've not just done it and then stepped into something else and used it as a stepping stone or whatever. You've faithfully served young people for 30 years. And the church, outside of your own context, is reaping the rewards of that. And I just think that's beautiful. It's beautiful that they just wanted the best for the young people in their lives. They empowered them, they sent them, and all those people have gone on to do some amazing things. So, two different ones, but they will be the ones that I've seen. God's doing so much across the nation. There's articles that's coming out at the moment of spiritually open generation, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, more than half likely to be atheists than their parents, and openness to the things of Jesus and to the things of God. It's really exciting, but at the same time, it's a massive door that we've got to together see how we can best walk through it.
Absolutely. And I think touching on that really quickly is that, and we've spoken about it in one of our other episodes as well, that this generation is far more open than any other generation that we've seen for years and years and years. But actually, as adults, as leaders, we actually need to start putting ourselves in really uncomfortable positions that we might not have had to do before, to be able to reach them, to be able to meet them, these young people where they're at, to encourage them on their journeys. And I think we need to see a real shift in our leadership strategies to do that. And I think it's really exciting. And
I'll be honest, I'm going to be a bit black and white. I think some people, whether there is tension in the relationship between youth leader, they just need to have, like, I don't know what else to say it, big boy conversations.
Healthy confrontation.
Yeah, I think they need to have the difficult conversation, and for the sake of health and growth, and go for a meal. If it's a cheap McDonald's, then so be it. Maybe
bring on the chicken nuggets.
Don't throw the chicken nuggets. Bring them on. Eat them. Eat the chicken nuggets. That's great, Sean. Thank you so much. Honestly, so many good points that you've made and things to consider. I know that people will be really blessed by that.
Yeah, really great practical steps as well.
It was so good to have that conversation with Sean. I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode of Established. We pray that you would continue to be rooted and established in God's love wherever you find yourself in your spiritual journey, and as you're trying to get on to do youth ministry in your community, in your context. Stay blessed. We'll see you next time.